Hi there. Welcome to Stories, a podcast by Acadium where we focus on the stories of our incredible users. People come to Acadium for a few different reasons. They might be looking to build new skills, whether that's for a career change or just to deepen their craft, or they might be looking to get some eager extra hands on their project or business. In any case, people come to Acadium to grow, and we find that our users often have amazing stories to tell about their journeys, and we're here to share them. AJ, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. For people listening, whereabouts are you joining from today?
Sorry?
Whereabouts are you joining me from today?
Yeah, so today I'm in Montreal, Canada.
Nice. Yeah, as I understand it, you haven't always lived in Montreal. You're a college dropout many years ago.
Yeah, I was born and raised in the Philippines, moved to Chicago, lived there for 14 years, and I dropped out of college and moved to San Francisco with no connection. And from there, I met my partner, and my partner's Canadian. So, of course, it was easier for us to just be in the same place for 6 months temporarily because that's the limit. And then we would move to California for the next 6 months and back and forth.
Did you move to California for school, or was that after you dropped out of school? Did you go to college in Chicago?
Yes, I went to college an hour north of Chicago, and then I transferred to a private university in Wisconsin. And after that, that's when I dropped out and moved to San Francisco.
What prompted the dropout for you?
So I was going through community college first, and when I had enough credits, I transferred, and it was an insane amount of money that I was spending, 20K a semester for a private university. And my time there, it was great. You know, the teachers were great, the students were awesome. It was a great environment. It just wasn't for me at the stage of my life because during that time when I transferred, I achieved over 1 million followers on social media. I was getting brand deals, I was monetizing, and I was traveling for social media. And when I realized after the semester that I was literally just forwarding my projects, creating content that I've been already creating, and receiving a 3.9 GPA and being on the dean's list, I thought to myself, is this really worth the money and time to get this degree with what I'm doing right now? And so it was also during that time where I had an internship offer in San Jose, California. And when I had that offer, I deliberated, talked to my close friends and family, and I decided to take the risk, drop out, and drive from Chicago to San Francisco.
So how do you get to that point? Unpack the million follower journey for me and people listening a little bit, because I can maybe only speak for myself, but probably many other people. It's not clear how you get there, particularly when you're in a full-time college program. What was the account that you were running? How did you get such a large following?
Yeah, definitely. So back in 2013, when Instagram was just ramping up, and you know that follower count, it was so weird. I thought Instagram was just a photo editing app, but then my friend showed me that, oh, you can get followers, and I thought this is kind of weird. Why would people follow me for my photos? You know, like back in the day. So had a, I had a bet with a friend on how many followers we can get in a month. And back then, there was honestly no limit to just following a lot of people. And I ended up following 10, I ended up getting over 10,000 followers in a month. And I obviously won against my friend. And from there, I thought, what would be the best way to continue this growth without excluding too many people? And I thought that creating memes and entertainment and comedy is a universal content that people would appreciate. And I thought that, I mean, people also thought that I was funny. So that's why I created it. And from there, I started creating those memes where it's like a photo. It's like a 2x2 photo where you just create a story. And this was before Vine. So from there, it got shared through 9gag, 4chan, and iFunny, and that's where I gained my initial 50 to 100K followers. When I realized that this could be a thing, I was able to find some other influencers that are posting similar content, and I reached out and said, hey, what if we gave each other shout outs and promoted each other? Because their content, even though it's similar, they have a different target audience. So from there, through our cross promotions, we would grow. And I grew at around earlier in the phase, I grew around 100K per month, and that was my goal. And
Oh my gosh.
it was a full time. It was kind of like a full time job. And actually, back then, it was easier to gain followers. Overnight, I could gain 5,000 followers, and the most I've ever gained in one night was 11,000. So it was a lot of cross promotion, a lot of collaboration with influencers, and of course uh, a lot of creative thinking, because you always need to constantly push out content. I had to create one every day and set it up. And back then there was no scheduler, so I would set an alarm for 4 a.m. because back then the Instagram's algorithm was non-existent. The feed was chronological, and when I post at 4 a.m., that's when New York is waking up, and of course when the rest of the country starts waking up, I would be the first one that they see. So I was able to capitalize off of the chronological feed, but of course that changed when Instagram changed the uh, algorithm, and that's how I gained my initial following.
How did you know that this was something that you wanted to keep working on once it became a full-time job? It's a ton of work, right? And you were in school. You could have been spending your time on all these different things. Was it just addicting to be getting those followers, or did you have some kind of outcome in mind that you were looking for?
Yes, I can definitely say that initially to the release of dopamine levels of seeing how many likes you get and the amount of followers you're getting. I haven't had the notifications on my phone turned on since 2013, because
Wow.
last time I had it on, my phone froze and I had to get a new one. I still don't know how or why, but I always play on the safe side, and it's always been a best practice for me. Every time I get a new phone, I make sure that all the notifications are on before I post anything. And it correct, you are correct that the metrics that Instagram was able to, that you can see on Instagram, was in a way addicting, but I also found the monetization opportunities. When I had around 50K followers, a few brands would reach out to me, and I can still recall a few brands, and they're mostly dating apps. Badu, Hot or Not. They reached out to me for like daily posts, and initially I was kind of confused, because why would they want to give me money to post something for them, you know? And that's when I was introduced to influencer marketing, and when I realized that more and more brands were emailing me asking for collaborations, that's when I realized that I can actually make income out of this. And I did. It was better than working at the previous job that I had. I was working retail at Abercrombie and Fitch. I was getting paid $8.25 an hour, and I get like 4 hours a week. So like the cost of driving there was my gas money. I had a 1996 Montero Mitsubishi that was like 13 miles per gallon, and it wasn't the best job, spraying cologne in the whole store every hour. So I thought that this was an ability for me to have more control of my time and being able to earn money. And also another background, the reason why I wanted to do this and what drove me to do this was, after graduating high school, my parents gave me the option to either take nursing, and they'll pay for it because I'm first generation from the Philippines, or I could pursue my own choice of education, but I'd have to pay for it. And back then I wanted to work in federal law enforcement, and I took criminal justice as my major. And so I pushed myself through community college, which was doable. It's affordable. And then that's when I moved to private university, that's when I was like, all right, well, this is not that valuable for me, at least.
Got it. What did the next step of the journey look like? So you went to college, you started this social media account, things started to grow really quickly. It turned into a full-time job. And then looking at your background, between then and now, you've had all sorts of different experiences. You've worked at a number of different companies, you've invested in a number of different companies. Is the account still something that you run, or did you say, I'm going to leave this behind and now go start working in social media and influencer marketing at different companies and sort of help them grow their presence?
Correct. I saw the opportunity that I have with 1 million followers as a stepping stone. I know that I wanted to be seen more seriously and not just a creator who creates funny memes. I wanted to be able to prove to friends and family and people that doubted me dropping out, and to show those companies in San Francisco that I can be taken seriously and I can give you results. Because there's social media was very young, and we need to maximize our efforts into there to get into the market, because right now it's oversaturated. And the results that I got now, it's something that you won't be able to replicate today. And yeah.
What were some of the highlights of working for some of these companies in the Bay Area? You worked for a couple of companies that went through some pretty significant growth periods. Calm stands out to me as an example. What did you learn working for these different companies? I also noticed that you worked for, you ran the social campaign for somebody in the San Francisco district attorney race in 2019. All these different experiences. Can you pick a few of these experiences and maybe share some of the highlights?
Yeah, definitely. So I got my first foot into an influencer marketing manager position when I worked at My Likes. CEO and co-founders Bindu Reddy, and it was a very interesting task because I had to promote her app called Candid. It was it was kind of like an anonymous Reddit app, and that's where I got connected with influencers, and I actually befriended some. I got in touch with talent managers, and I was able to showcase my ability to run these influencer marketing campaigns, because I have the perspective of an influencer as well as a marketing professional to ensure that we hit our KPIs. And we primarily promoted on YouTube, and we closed some pretty big deals because we had a significant budget. I was like, oh, this is a lot of money. When I was 21, 22, I was like, this is the whole, like, this whole deal is what I made like the past few years. So it was crazy. But there were some really great results that we were able to deliver, such as trending an app #1 in the App Store for 2 consecutive days. That was awesome. And just being able to see the growth um, of that app through influencer marketing. That was just something that showed me like a different world of influencer marketing, that you can do all of this using the right influencers and the right strategies and connecting with the right talent and talent managers to back you up. And also, um, that was a great work environment for me. Bindu was a great director, and she was very blunt and upfront about certain things, which I appreciated. Just tell me what you think and let's correct it. And she was supportive of all my decisions and being able to push me out of my boundaries, and allowing me to make mistakes. I think that's important. And I think that her coming from Google, and her co-founder and partner was also a Google executive back then. They created this environment of just being able to fail fast, fail early, and it allowed me to explore other strategies and opportunities that we can do with influencer marketing. So that's what I would say one of the highlights. And then my second one would be of course, working with ByteDance. When I at 23, they headhunted me away from Bindu, and I was able to lead social media here in North America, and it was a very interesting and eye-opening experience because you immerse yourself in a Chinese-based company trying to globalize here in the U.S. Whereas with most companies here in the U.S., they're trying to globalize outside, and it's interesting having to know the cultural and the cultural differences between the two and how they communicate and how marketing is perceived in China. And this is something I noticed how the strategies in China you can't copy and paste it in here in the US. And people in China and also here in the US, if you're going to try to market in China, you need to understand the cultural differences, their mentalities, and how they approach content because it's completely different. So I would say that was my second highlights because also when I lived in San Francisco, the marketing team was here in the LA. So I would fly out every month and stay in LA for like 2 to 3 weeks and then come back for a week. And it was interesting having 11 p.m., 1 a.m. meetings because of the other side of the team. And then yeah, my third highlight would be working at Com. And after ByteDance, I wanted to find a company where it's purpose driven, they have a mission, and Com fit all of that. I was able to work with very talented people with a great mission to bring mental health into everyday conversation. It shouldn't be taboo. And that's where it really occurred to me how we definitely need to take care of our mental health as equally as our physical health. And it shouldn't be a taboo topic when discussing because we all are humans and we all have different challenges and we face different problems. So if we're able to talk about this and we're able to be more aware of our mental fitness, we become more effective people, personally and professionally. And after that, I really loved working with purpose-driven companies. And of course, I saw the opportunity not to only work with purpose-driven companies, but to get involved politically. Back in 2019, I was following an influencer and promoting a few candidates that are progressive, and that's where I align. And me studying criminal justice and talking to defense lawyers, there are some, there are some racial injustices that can occur and are rampant in our criminal justice system. So that's why I was able to um, get in touch with the candidates through Instagram. I just DM'd him and asked, like, hey, what do you think about digital? Do you have any plans for social? It was something that a candidate never thought about. I mean, he did, but he didn't see the importance of it and how that could affect his election. So we talked for a while. We got on the call. I went to San Francisco, later on and met up with him, volunteered, and worked with the campaign manager to ensure best practices for Instagram specifically. And I worked with this campaign for a little bit, and it was a very great experience knowing that with the skills that I have, I was able to contribute to elect someone that I believe is doing a great job reforming our criminal justice system. He is able to literally affect hundreds of thousands of lives, and knowing that you contributed to that in some way, no matter how small, and also being connected to a person that has good intentions, that was great. So I would say that those are one of my highlights. And also 2020, it's an election year. I got involved in a few local campaigns in Georgia, as well as a few congressional campaigns in California, and I'm consulting for a Senate campaign in Delaware.
What's interesting to me about these different experiences that you talked about are particularly as you approach this chapter where you worked with Com and you started to work in these political environments, you talk a lot about the purpose behind what you're doing, making mental health a normal thing for people to be talking about, promoting some kind of agenda through candidates that you align with. I think when some people think about what a good outcome looks like for social media, the perception is that it probably boils down to, you know, follows and likes and comments, but just the way that you speak about the work that you're doing, it's clear to me that it runs a lot deeper than that for you. How do you think about the impact that you can make with social for these different organizations that you work with, and what a good outcome looks like for you through the work that you do for these different people?
Definitely. And working in political campaigns, we don't win all the time. I think that the more people are aware of their policies, the more of what they're trying to do to combat the status quo, I think that's important. And taking away the labels, I think that human rights should not be a political, um, it shouldn't be it shouldn't be political. I think that treating people the way that they should be treated should be a normal thing. And being here in Canada now, it's a little bit different than the political climate in the US. And just having a egalitarian view when we approach policies, I think that that was very important. And even though we do lose some campaigns, it's good to know that people out there are aware that there are candidates like these. People are aware of these policies, such as Medicare for All and Green New Deal, and people are aware that they can also get involved. I've been talking to a lot of all of these volunteers from multiple campaigns, and this is their first time. Like literally 99% of them, this is their first time, and they're all younger than 20, or not 20, sorry, 30. And it's really, really interesting to see how our generation is getting more involved and how social media is fueling that participation to get involved. And the most latest one that you can probably recall was when TikTok users, they they reserved over 1 million tickets for a Trump rally, and just being able to utilize social media for activism and to just get the information out there is such a powerful thing.
How do you sort of measure or know when what you're trying to accomplish through social is working? Is it just, people are engaging with this content, people are starting to follow this account, there seems to be some kind of reception in the numbers that what we're doing is speaking to people, or is it something else?
Yeah, so every campaign, every company, they have different goals. And so the first campaign would be, the way we look at social media long term is that we have an awareness campaign. People need to understand who we are, what we're trying to do, and why they should love us, because in social media, everyone's always competing for your attention. So you need to find a way to stand out. And the way we measure awareness is, of course, engagement, sentiments, likes, comments, shares, how people are responding to social media, what are they saying about us. And these are a little bit more intangible because these are more on the organic front, as well as some paid social. And we always get the hesitation from data-driven people on what's the importance of awareness campaigns, because if you get 1,000 impressions, does it translate to 1 download, 2 download? And it's not really like that. And I don't think that's how we should approach campaigns, because awareness is just top of the funnel. The second part of a marketing campaign that we go through is a consideration stage. So this is for people who know about us already. They're the ones who are engaged with us. They showed some form of interest. And from there, we can put a more, we can push out more content with a harder ask. And by harder ask, I mean we tell them, we request them to follow us on social media, DM us, give us your opinion, follow this link, sign up for this petition, things like that. And then once we're able to push them through further down the marketing funnel, we target them through conversion campaigns. And the KPIs for these would be different. It would be, downloads and sales. And these are people who really shown interest because they've engaged with us through the consideration campaign. And from there, we just retarget those people and everyone else in awareness, consideration, and conversion to ensure that we have this full cycle marketing strategy to get people involved through social, email, SMS, podcasts, and anything else where people are digitally and even sometimes offline.
The funnel to me is an interesting concept in social, particularly as it relates to politics in some ways. I'm just thinking about the idea of a funnel, and what strikes me as really interesting is I feel like, not that I have any experience doing this, but I feel like in some ways the conversion event might not even matter, right? Like if you're on the team, or if you're a person who has a particular view, even if you are looking for votes, just by virtue of you getting your view out there into the world, you've started a conversation. And if that conversion event never happens, let's say it's a vote, doesn't mean that the campaign wasn't successful necessarily. At least I think, because you've said this is how we feel about the world. This is the conversation that we want to start. And even if 50 people who end up voting for somebody else engage with that in some way, you've got your voice out there, and that to me has to be worth something.
Right, exactly. And I've seen multiple campaigns where the candidate lost, but the person that won knew that they have to change their policies because the percentage that they won was lower than what they did previously. So that's why I encourage people to run, to get involved politically, because you're able to influence candidates. Incumbents are not, they're not safe. The office that they hold, it's the people's seat, it's not theirs. And we've seen this happen a few times already. The most famous one, of course, was when Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she defeated a very powerful incumbent, Joseph Crowley, who was elected for 17 years or 17 terms, I forgot. And then most recently in New York, when Jamal Brown defeated Elliot Engel, also a very powerful incumbent, and also Mondaire Jones, who won in a very crowded Democratic field. So we're seeing changes, and we're seeing these things, and we're seeing candidates who've lost previously, such as Cori Bush in Missouri. However, she's running again, and she has momentum. So these candidates coming in, they know that the first time is always the hardest, but the more support that they get, the more that they're able to push the candidate to adopt progressive policies or whatever policies that's more important to the district, then that's where they're more likely to adopt those policies. Because again, being an elected official, you have to represent the people and not yourself. So that was very interesting to me. And of course, this transition to social media, and of course the most successful candidate that was able to do this was Barack Obama. Back in 2008, digital was so new, and his campaign transformed it, and it opened up that possibility. He was against Clinton, and he was against some very well-known Democratic senators. So him utilizing digital was so interesting, and then just me reading and looking back at it, it was a really good time.
I remember the speech that he gave at the DNC. I think it was in 2009. And the speech went viral. It was just the most compelling speech, and gave it to this physical audience, but the speech spread like crazy over the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
that was I mean, I don't know how you measure the influence, but I picked up on it, and I was totally moved by it. And that from that point, and I was, not really interested in politics at the time, but I was so captured by what this person was saying. He was such a captivating speaker. And his team clearly made use of these digital channels to distribute his campaign run ultimately. Can you talk a bit about what's keeping you busy these days? I know you've got a few different projects on the go, including your own agency and nonprofit. What are you working on?
Yeah, so I've been working really hard to scale our agency and creating a culture that is diverse and inclusive and a place where people feel belonging. We are a minority-led agency, and we all have these different perspectives that we believe makes us stronger. Our core values are diversity, transparency, and boldness. So I've been making sure that we are being efficient, that I'm giving them the resources that they need to ensure that they work as efficiently as possible. And the more we grow, the more I realize that when you're in a leadership position, your job is literally to take care of your employees, your contractors, and your apprentices. And to me, that's exciting and that's fulfilling because we are an agency where our clients are also minority-led, female-led, and they're trailblazers into what they do, such as Jumpstart Recovery, Fleeting, and Fleeting, the CEO and co-founder. He's the first Black man to raise the maximum in a crowdfunding platform in history. So being associated with that and him being able um, to showcase his abilities because he's gone through a lot of things as well. And I think such a great example for minorities and minorities entrepreneurs to look up to because they do exist. I think that we need to exemplify more minority entrepreneurs because the unique experiences that they have and the challenges they go through, and they just have such an interesting story. And he's able to share that with me, and him going through podcasts and just reading about it. Just that proximity with him is such a great feeling. So us being a minority-led agency, helping other minority-led clients to do their thing and to make history, it's so awesome. And of course, I've been spending more time with our apprentices and them getting involved into this. It's something that they love being part of because it's not just them doing tasks. They're doing tasks and strategizing because they know that the clients that we're helping out want to do better. They want to grow their company into something that literally helps people. So I really appreciate our apprentices being able to do that. And on top of that, of my agency, we do have that nonprofit. It's a 501c4, meaning that we can get involved politically. And of course, it's called Our Damn Time, and we are advocating for equality, whether it's racial, gender, LGBT, disability rights. We are advocating for it because it all intersects. And we want to be able to put those candidates who will push for those policies in power because they're the ones who's able to make those change. And that's why we're a 501c4 instead of a 501c3. A 501c3, if you didn't know, they can't get involved politically, but they're able to work with reactive problems. That's how I see it. An example that I previously mentioned is that you can donate to a group, for example, that donates books to underprivileged kids, but at the same time, why don't they have support? What is the current policy? What are our elected officials doing about it? And it shouldn't be the burden on us, the private citizens. It should be on the burden of the publicly elected officials. So our goal in the long run is to elect those leaders where you won't need 501c3s, but being able to make long-term changes and not just reactive. So those are my two projects, and of course, I have a podcast that I'm working with with my friend. Her name is Jobel Gakuya. She's been working with nonprofits and homelessness alleviation in San Francisco, and she's one of the smartest and most positive person that I've ever met. And we decided that we wanted to create resources for underrepresented communities. She invited me to speak at Stanford to the students out there when she taught for the summer, and it really inspired me to know that these kids, they come from underrepresented communities, underprivileged, and they're able to get a scholarship and being able to push through. Those are survivors. They're not survivors. They're fighters, and those are the hustlers. And I love being able to inspire the next generation because the unique perspectives that we have, like I mentioned before, is what makes us great. And the reason, ultimately, too, the reason why we decided to do this is because we always talk about Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos. These are straight white men who won't have the same challenges as us. And some of these men, they come from money, they come from privilege. We can't borrow $1 million from our parents, because we just don't have those resources. So the advice that they give us is sometimes invalid and not applicable because we're not in that position of privilege, and we need alternative ways. So that's why we want to create a resource for them, feature minorities and entrepreneurs who are able to overcome those problems, because again, like our perspectives are all unique. We just need to be able to push out as much solutions as we can there, because again, the advice that we get out there, it's just like they just treat it like a blanket advice where it's not applicable to just, it's not applicable to everyone. It just applies to a few. So that's one of my third projects. And of course, we're also working on a social media course. I think that there are a lot of people that's trying to get into social media, and it inspired me because when I was trying to find a social media manager for my agency, I had over 1,000 applicants for a social media manager. And it was time consuming going through it, pre-qualifying them and screening them. And from over 1,000 applicants, I was able to pre-screen 40. And from those 40, I got on a call with 6. And from those 6, I was only able to hire 1. So you can see, like, that's so, that's completely time consuming. So I want to create a course to give people my strategies and my learnings that I've accrued over the years, and to let them know that this is how I've been doing it, and this is how you can stand out, because this is how I stood out. And from there, hopefully, those that perform really well, of course, we'd love to have them part of our agency. And of course, that we also understand that sometimes people may not see social media as their calling. So if they're interested in email, paid social, SEO, yeah, go to Acadium. You can learn there. You can sign up for an apprenticeship. So those are the projects that I've been working on.
It's clear to me, and probably anybody listening, that you're a builder by nature. You've got this kind of consistent narrative of things that you care deeply about, and you've built these different initiatives around them. And in some cases, in the case of the last example particularly, you've got a problem that you're confronted with in your own work, and you quickly build a solution for it. One thing that does stand out to me, though, is that although the narrative is consistent, you have so many different things going on, and you've got these sets of different problems that you're sort of dealing with in each of these initiatives. You've got your social media agency. Agencies are so interesting because within the agency, you're working with all sorts of different businesses who have their own unique sets of problems, and you're focused on helping them with those things. So how do you manage to switch context so well between, well, I'm assuming that you do it well, because it sort of seems like you're able to handle this stuff pretty well. That's my impression. How do you manage context switching between these different projects that you're working on? Do you have any sort of practical advice for people that might have some difficulty navigating context?
Definitely. So time management has been an initial challenge for me. So when I went to a private high school, we actually didn't have teachers. We set our own goals. And if we don't finish those goals, then we take it home as our homework. And it was great. We pretty much taught ourselves. It was kind of like it was kind of like homeschool. And from there, I took the same principles and did that with college, and that's how I believe that's how I was able to get on the dean's list, even though I missed 60% of my college days. And from there, taking the same principles, being able to juggle multiple projects, I believe you just need time management skills, and it's definitely a skill that you continually need to hone. It's not something that I've mastered. I always have my tasks to do on my notebook, and I also use Trello if there's any project collaborations. And of course, I set deadlines for myself. And for me to do anything, I also block sessions on my schedule, on my Google Calendar, so people know that they can't book me there. Or when I send out a Calendly invite, I limit it to like 2 to 3 of these type of events a day. Initially, while I was growing my agency, it was like a month ago. I was taking like 8 to 12 calls a day, and that's exhausting. And I had to. It wasn't scalable, and it's very interesting because you need a little bit of time to switch gears. You need to understand what's going on in this meeting, what you need to do. But I think we are doing a pretty good job at our agency because we have our goals, we have our deadlines, and whatever happens is up to them. You know, I believe that I believe in trusting our employees to do their best and doing it efficiently. Just because the amount of hours that you put in doesn't necessarily amount to quality of work. So of course, I always tell them like, all right, spend your time effectively. How can we also make this easier for us? How can we make this easier for our clients? Let's keep working on this. So I've always been championing that at our agency, and transparency as well. We give them feedback, and of course, it's also very important for them to give me feedback as a leader. I think that's in this position too. A lot of people that come in, we don't know everything. We continually learn, and I'm very open and very appreciative that I actually learn a lot from our apprentices and our employees, regardless of level. And just coming in with creative ideas, that's what we try to do. That's why boldness is one of our core values, because with marketing, we don't just want to follow strategies here and there because our company did this and did that. We also want to be trailblazers into this, and that comes with the whole mentality too. Being minorities. All of us are minorities in our agency. We have to push out 3, 4, 5 times more effort than people who are in the position of privilege to be even considered in the same playing field. So it all ties back together, and we all try to ensure that we respect everyone's time, and that's why I feel bad. And I correct people like, don't tell me I'm busy. We all have, you and I have the same 24 hours in a day. It's how we use it. And I personally don't like saying I'm busy or telling people I'm busy, because 1, it tells me I'm not good at managing my time. And 2, it tells me that I don't value you. And I don't want people to think that I don't value them by saying I'm busy. I just want to be able to spend my time as productive as possible, and making sure that we're able to hit the goals that we set, and of course, satisfying our client needs.
Well, AJ, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. As I said at the beginning, I figured that we would have no problem filling the time across a variety of different topics, and I don't think we failed to do that. So thank you so much for choosing to spend some of your time chatting here with me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, this was really fun. Hopefully we can chat again soon.
Definitely.